In lieu of current events, I felt like this would be an appropriate time to tell y'all the backstory of how me and La Santísima became me and La Santísima. What is my cat doing? And I want to say I am eternally and absolutely and infinitely grateful for each and every single one of you. My life has changed so much ever since I decided to not only get on this app, but as well as showing this more private side of me, as for a very long time, even the closest people to me had no idea what my extracurricular spiritual activities were. So muchas gracias con todo mi corazón. Los quiero mucho. And make sure y'all are following me on all the other platforms. Now, when I look back, even when I was younger, I used to have dreams of a skeletal figure being in my dream. And for some reason, I was never scared of her. And I didn't know what it was or anything. It was just something that would happen every once in a while. And this is just me reflecting back, like when I think about it, I'm like, that was her the whole time. So you will have a lot of aha moments, regardless of how long you've been in the things you're in. Like, for instance, I'm a santera and the espiritismo, I'm a devotee. And there's still times where I look back and I'm like, oh my God, that was like me being a child of Oya, or that was just La Santísima, or that was just this spirit, or this God, this goddess, this guidance guide. So upon reflection, you start to connect the dots. So I say all of this because my path to La Santísima is hand in hand and tied in together with me being a santera. When I first was exposed to Santeria and Palo Mayum, specifically because Espiritismo has always been in my life. I'm Dominican. So they used to have Dominican Palo parties all the time. It was like a running joke. They used to, like, it was not very well hidden, but when you're a kid, you really don't know. So when I first got exposed to Santeria and Palo Mayumbe, it was early 20s. Like, I must have been like 19 going to 20. I used to work at nightclubs and things like that, even though I was way too young to be. And eventually I became close to the people that were running like the actual promoters and the events, bringing in the artists, and they would go from place to place. The main person behind it, he's a palero sante. So when the club that I used to originally work at got shut down, I ended up just traveling with them and becoming part of their thing and not just working for the club. And because of that, I ended up creating a bond and working with and being like around his sister, working with his sister. And I ended up getting invited to the house. And of course, once I got there, like they had their things in various areas. And it was very much a big part of, like, when they would open up the clubs and stuff like that, they would make sure that they would like sage and smoke and cleanse and do all this stuff. So I got curious, started asking questions, got invited to the house. After getting closer, I got exposed, introduced to all the but I ended up not actually receiving things from them. And that's another story for another day, so I digress. So I end up moving all the way across the country to like Washington State. Me being like an East Coaster, born and raised in New York, and then we were living in Connecticut. And in Connecticut was when I was exposed to this. I was in Washington for a little bit, and then I came back because my mom was still living out here in the East Coast. So eventually it was like a back and forth from one coast to the other. And in one of those points, I ended up by myself out here in the East Coast. My whole family had already moved to the West Coast. And during that time, I was living in New York. I know it sounds long, but I got the tism. And context is everything. Plus, I always got a story to tell because I just used to do so much stuff here. So now I'm living in New York. And one day, me and an old best friend of mine, she is Salvadorian, and so she put me on to something called pupusas. Shit slept so good, baby. And normally I would get a horchata at the Salvadorian spot when I would eat my pupusas, but it was summertime. And in the summertime, Dunkin' Donuts would have, like, you can get a big iced tea, like a large iced tea, but it would only be like $2. So I was like, money was tight. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go next door. For some reason, I just felt like I had to go next door and get the dang stuff from Dunkin' Donuts and not the horchata that I usually crave. And y'all, when I walk in, the first thing that I see is a yawo. And I knew it was a yawo because I had already been exposed to it. You see why I told you what I told? I knew what it meant to see somebody dressed in all white, to be covered head to toe, to have the eleques, the collares. And you just know, okay? So I see them and they're like paying for their order. And once they're done, the first thing I do is ask them to put me on to their gama. True story. That yawo, Chaudovo Goon. It gets better. So I get put on to my godmother and I start receiving things expeditiously because I had already had prior exposure. I was supposed to have been received things, hadn't received them. So now it's like everything got on like a speed trap. And in between this time, I ended up working in this place called Public Storage in the Bronx, one of their locations. Now, by this time, I'm pretty sure I had already gotten my ancieles, which is like when you go into 21 divisions, espiritismo, and probably already had gotten my guerreros and my eleques, my collares. I'm pretty sure. So because of this, I had already been at work and people at work knew that I was into some spiritual stuff because of my religion, certain things I had to do and couldn't do, blah, blah, blah. So one day, I'm at work, and mind you, it was a big public storage place, okay? When you don't pay your storage unit, you have a certain time frame. And after that, if they try all these things, they open up your storage unit, see what's in there, and then it gets raffled off. People start bidding, and everything that's in there gets taken. Again, context. So now, my co-workers had gone upstairs to go check a unit, open up a unit, because no payment. Something happened with no payment. They couldn't reach the customer, nothing. And when they opened up the units, they saw things in there that they literally just came running to tell me and wanted me to go see it for myself because they didn't know how they were supposed to approach. So I'm like, okay, I'm not thinking nothing of it. They're like, you just gotta see this. We don't know how to approach it. Yo, when they open up the door to the unit, I'm getting chills. The first thing I see when they open is a 12-inch negra that looks exactly like her. So my eyes directly go and look at her and I'm like, okay, I get it. I see where we're at. And then I start panning around. I haven't said shit. Most I've said is, I see what we're talking about. I start panning around looking. A bunch of stuff, y'all. Like when I tell you, I don't know what happened to this person, but all their spiritual stuff was in this unit. And it was so heartbreaking. That was my first experience with La Santísima, a literal statue of her and in negra. And I mean, there was so much stuff in that unit. I immediately get to calling my godmother and I'm like, Madrina, mira, should I'm inclined to bring the statue with me. This is all the other stuff. And I'm like breaking down and giving her details. Immediately she's like, yeah, bring the statue and bring this. I bring it to the house because I was staying at my godmother's house because at this time I pretty much had nowhere to live. I'm always going to be forever and eternally grateful for this woman because when I met her, I had no stability, like nothing. Then we start to vetting things out. La Santísima statue stays. And I bet you anything to this day, my madrina probably still has that Santa Muerte statue with the rest, like it was like she was in this one area off to the side, but next to the other misterios. I thought I stopped it. So yeah, from there I continue on, like desenvolviendo like all my stuff, honing into. And my godmother was definitely one of them brujas. But here's the thing, child de Yemaya. So now I'm getting all these initiations, getting all these things, and it comes time to find out who is ruling over my head so I can go do santo. And when they start throwing, it's just 9 after osa after osa after osa, 9 after 9 after 9. So now my godfather looks up at her and he's like, look, two things might be. It's either she's a child of Yemaya or she's a child of Oya. And if she's a child of Oya, you already know. So most houses go by the concept of children of Oya cannot touch the head of a child of Yemaya and vice versa. They go and confirm. I turn out to be Omo Oya. Now we're scrambling. I choose my godfather because I already knew him via her and all the stuff that I've done. I choose him to be my godfather. And for my Yubana was her god sister, a child of Ogun. Full circle, y'all. Mind you, it is Ogun who gives his herramientas, his tools to Oya. Crazy stuff, right? That's why you gotta always just let things happen, let them flow. What is meant to be will be. For as cliche as it sounds, if something is for you, just trust and know that it will make its way to you. And the way things change for you. I love you all so much. Follow me on all my socials. Me and La Santísima are out. Bye.